guys. Welcome to EPAG Youth. Please stand and worship with us.
All my words fall short. I got nothing new. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing these songs as I often do. Every song must end, and you never do. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, I've nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. I got one response, I got just one move. With my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, I've nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, Come on, my son, oh, don't you get shy on me and lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Oh, come on, my son, oh, don't you get shy on me and lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Oh, come on, my son, oh, don't you get shy on me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I'm seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. You conquered it all. I've tried so hard to see it. Took me so long to believe it. That you choose someone like me to carry your victory. Perfection could never earn it. You give what we don't deserve it. You take the broken things and raise them to glory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. And now I can finally see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all the striving cease. Oh, this is my victory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. You sing when I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority. Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority. Jesus has given me. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes down. I have the authority. Jesus has given me. authority that you've given us to conquer anything in our lives. To break down any wall that is put in front of us. We thank you for the grace that you've given us every single day. In Jesus' name we all pray. Amen. As you take your seats, as always, give a high five, fist bump, say hello to the person next to you.
Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing tonight? Good. Does anyone else just want to be outside? It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Let's go outside. Summer is going to be here sooner than you know it. Anybody still waiting for spring break? You haven't had it yet. Anybody? Okay. All of us people who work are like, yeah, that doesn't happen. So Shakopee, is that the last school to have spring break, I think? No one else has spring break coming up? Okay. Exciting. Oh, Connor, you do? What school, are you PSCO? Okay, so you're almost going to enjoy it. I hope you enjoy every bit of it. Well, welcome. Hopefully, if you already had spring break, you're a little more refreshed, and the weather that's getting nicer, guys. It's just super exciting that summer is almost here. Which, by the way, it's almost April, which you guys know that. But starting in April, you can register for camp if you're planning on going. Your parents have all the details, so you shouldn't have to really worry about it too much. But just so you guys know, that's how close we are to summer. Camp registration opens in next month, and I just can't wait. So it's going to be awesome. A couple quick things. If you sign up to be a student leader, I will get back to you by tomorrow. So if that applies to some of you in this room, I already have a plan. I'm just going to text you tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that text if you filled out a student leadership application. And then I know we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but Easter is just around the corner. It's a week from this Sunday. And so if you don't come to Sundays, or maybe you already do, this is a great opportunity for you to be there with your family. We have a 9 and 11 a.m. service, some donuts and coffee, and just a lot of fun things happening that morning, and we'd love for you to be there. So make sure you mark your calendars. I think almost all of our leaders are volunteering somehow that day, and so it's just a great time. Even if you don't really know, maybe your family doesn't come, all of us leaders really are going to be there, and it's just an awesome time. So excited for that. Also, one more thing. This is kind of a fun thing. It's not really an announcement, but starting next week, at the beginning of my message, there's going to be a question of the week, and there's going to be a prize for it. Now, there's not going to be a certain category. It's just going to be like a really intense question of the week, and the first student to guess it right will win something. It's going to be a good prize every time. So just be here next week to see what that's all about, and I'm excited. It won't probably be as hard, Logan, as like the game last week where you're trying to guess who sent that text. Like, that was a pretty hard game. Not gonna lie. Chase wasn't here, but they did. Did you guess Chase's text right? I think you did. Yeah, they did guess your text right. So I guess you're a little predictable than some of us other ones are. Oh, Joanna, were you here? No. Everybody thought Pete sent me the text that said honey, but it was really you. So they really threw him off. They all thought it was Pete and it was you. So that was super fun. But that's gonna start next week. Okay, so tonight we're going to finish our series on It's Not About Me. We're going to finish the story of Moses, although his story is really just beginning. So we might be done with it for now, and if maybe you've read Exodus, you know so much of the whole story. But tonight we're going to finish his story to a certain part in chapter 3, and then if you ever want to read the book of Exodus, it is wild. There's so much, and it's a beautiful book. So we're not going to get into all of it, but we're going to start a new series next week, which is going to be fire, and it's going to be great. So we have learned about Moses, and we have learned that it's really not who we are. It's all about who God is. Even if you can sum it up into two 2 months of talking about Moses, it's nothing about who we are. It's all about who God is. And it's just a great reminder, especially as we navigate through school and families and relationships and brokenness and times where you don't know what's next. It's just such a great reminder. And if you're taking notes, tonight's main point is this: God equals promise keeper. God equals promise keeper. So although we're not going to read about all of the promises being fulfilled, if you were to go finish the book of Exodus and even into Leviticus, you will see that God keeps the promises that he makes. He keeps them. So God equals promise keeper. Did anyone do like pinky promises growing up? Yes. Does anybody still do them? Like if you pinky promise someone, Bree still does it. Anybody else? Hope still does it. Like it's still a thing. My sister-in-law, she has probably like 35, 6, 7, something like that. She still does pinky promises, and like if you literally pinky promise with her, she's like, this means more to me than anything. So like if you pinky promise with her, like it's a really big deal. Now growing up, I wasn't a pinky promiser, but some people still do it. So like it means a lot. So God is, if you just want to say like a pinky promiser, like he's gonna keep the promises that he makes. Okay, so Exodus 3, if you have your Bibles, you can open to verse 16, and we're going to cover verse 16 through 22. I'm going to summarize it. I've been doing that a lot more because sometimes it's easier if I just explain what's happening. You know where it's at. You can follow along. You can go back and read it and take your own notes. But I like to summarize it because sometimes there's just a lot of words, and so if we can minimize any complications, it's great. But I would still recommend you to go read this book and even these verses word for word sometimes. So Exodus 3, verse 16 through 22. Even if you're taking notes, you can write that down like, I want to go read Exodus 3, 16 through 22. So after God tells Moses, I am who I am, and that's what you should tell the Israelites when they ask who sent you, God makes 3 promises to Moses. Does anybody know, and you can find them in verse 16 through 22, what the 3 promises that God makes are? Raise your hand if you know one of them. God makes 3 promises. Now, if you haven't read this verses before, you might not know. That's okay. We're just going to try guessing for fun. Christopher. Yes, he promises land. God promises good land. Amazing. Well done. So that's the first promise. Or one of the 3 promises, I should say. There's 2 more promises that God tells Moses. Here's what I'm going to promise you and the Israelites. Anybody else? I can tell you, but I just was curious if anyone knew them. What other 2 they were? Any leaders? Can take a guess. Maybe you already saw the questions. Maybe you already know. Okay. God promises good land. Thank you, Christopher. God promises that the Israelites would be let go. So those are 2 separate promises. Being let go and getting good land are 2 separate things. Because he could let them go and he doesn't have any land for them, any good land promise. So those are 2 separate things. And then God promises gold. He promises those 3 things in just these verses. And actually, if you continue to read the book of Exodus, God makes different promises and he fulfills them and he provides them. So it's super amazing. But the first one is God promised good land. You see, God promised good land to the Israelites, and here's what you need to know. The Israelites didn't own the land that they were enslaved in, okay? They might have owned it at one time if you go back into their fathers who lived before them, but there came a point where Pharaoh took over. And that's why they're enslaved. That's why they aren't free, because Pharaoh has taken over this land that they are living on. So they don't own land. I don't know about you guys, and you probably maybe don't even think about it because you're younger and I didn't think about it at your age, but owning land, even to this day, is kind of considered something to be held in high regards. Like, if your parents own a house, it's kind of something that, they might hold in high regards. Does anyone know someone who lives on a farm? A few people. If someone owns all this land, these fields, acres, it's kind of a big deal. And as you get older, maybe even older than me, it's kind of a big deal if you own land. And so the fact that the Israelites didn't own land was kind of a big deal. And not only because they didn't own land, then they were enslaved to the people that owned the land that they lived on. So not only do they not have anything to call their own, somebody else is claiming the Israelites as their own. So there's kind of this super twisted way that they're having to live day in and day out. And the fact that God promises good land is also another big deal. And what you have to know is for the Israelites to get to this good land, which, does anybody remember, it said this land is flowing with, there's 2 things. Milk and honey. This land is literally so good. It's flowing with milk and honey, okay? in order for them to get to this good land, are they just going to be handed it? Do you guys think God's just going to, here you go. They have to go through land that's not their own. And if you read in the stories, they have to fight off people that are in these spaces, in these lands that they are going to travel through. So they not only they're promised this beautiful promise, like you're going to be set free, and we'll get to that in a second. You're going to be in this good land. But guess what? You're going to have to go through quite a few wild things to get there. One of the things, the very first thing, is they have to walk through this big puddle of water. Does anyone know what it's called? Yeah, they have to walk through the Red Sea. Are you kidding me? Like, you're looking at this huge sea, which, I'm sorry, I doubt a lot of them knew how to swim. Okay, that's just not, I just don't think they knew how to swim. Some of you don't know how to swim, okay? And so God's like, look at this big sea that's right in front of you. I just set you free. Oh, guess what? Walk through it. Like, are you nuts? Like, if you had little siblings, I'm sure some of you wish they would go swim in there. But these little siblings, older people, all of their anything they're going to bring with them, so animals and stuff, they have to walk through the sea. Which at that point, it had never been heard of, that you could just walk through a sea and walk through it and not drowned. Like, it had never been heard of. So God's saying, I'm going to give you this good land, this land that is flowing with milk and honey, this land where you are going to take over it and like it's going to be yours. But you're going to have to walk through the flippin' sea. You're going to have to fight off these people that are in these different lands in order for you to get there. And you're going to have to, oh, by the way, there's going to be times where you're not going to have food and you're not going to have water. So guess what? You're going to have to completely depend and trust in me that I will provide you those things. Because without food and water for a certain amount of time, what happens? People die. You guys wouldn't know because we've never died from that, but people die. So all of these things have to happen first in order for them to get this promise that God has fulfilled, or that God has promised them. And if you read through the whole book and into Leviticus, you will find what happens. Very few people make it to the good land because very few people completely depended and trusted in God through all of it. Now, I'm not here to say that the Israelites should have had more faith. They should not doubt. I'm not here to say any of that. What I'm here to say is God promised this good thing, and only a few people got the reward because only a few people were able to say, God, I trust that you're going to provide water. I trust that you're going to provide food. We don't know if they actually walked through the sea. Like, I'm sure it was so many years later, but I trust that you're going to help us overtake this good land that you have promised us. So God is a promise keeper. But in this story, only a few people experienced that promise because only a few people trusted him completely. The second promise is that God promised the people would be let go. So again, two different things. He could have said, by the way, you guys are going to be free from stupid old Pharaoh, the man who has kept you enslaved. You're going to be free for him, but as soon as you walk out of Egypt, you're going to have to fend for your own. You're going to have to fight your own. You're going to have to find your own thing. I'm just getting you past like the prison gate, basically. So for the very first time in probably their entire lives as Israelites, they hear the word freedom. A word that we often hear as Americans. Does anyone know the saying, land of the blank because of the blank? Am I that old? Do they not teach that anymore? Land of the free because of the brave. Okay, so it's something, when you went to 4th of July parades as a kid, I went to them and that was, whatever, it's just such a thing. Okay, but the people are going to go and they were going to walk out of Egypt, which they had been born and raised in slavery, and they never experienced freedom in their entire life, something most of us enjoy every day, even if you're not aware of it. Some of you are like, my parents are like prison wardens. They always keep me like in prison. Okay, stop. You experience more freedom than most people around the world experience every day. But when God promised the Israelites that they would be let go, set them free from slavery, here's what he was saying. For the first time ever in your entire life, you are going to experience something new. This was something they had never even experienced. This past week, has anyone experienced like a new food? Like you're like, I've never experienced this before. Anyone? Yes, Josh, tell us about it. Chicken and waffles. Okay, a new experience combination. How was it out of 1 through 10, 10 being the best? It was a 10. Okay, very cool. Yeah, so that's just an example of like experiencing something new. This was something they'd never, ever experienced before. And so it's a pretty big deal that God would promise them something they had never experienced, seen, or felt in their entire life. So not only was God going to say, I'm going to bring you, Luke, to a good land, he's saying, I'm going to set you free, Jaden, and you're going to experience freedom for the very first time in your entire life. And the last promise that God made them was he promised them gold. Anyone have some gold laying around? No? Evan, you do? Okay. You're like, I actually don't want to tell you because I don't want you to come looking for it. This promise, honestly, guys, this is God. This is God just showing off how powerful he is, and I love it so much. Okay, if you think about it, what are the Israelites going to do with gold in the wilderness? Now, if you don't get ahead of yourselves, they end up building an idol. Okay, that's a side story. But really, what are they going to buy? Who are they going to find? What are they going to buy with gold in the desert and in the wilderness? I don't know if maybe. I could see that. But like, God's literally told them, go to all of the Egyptians. If you read verse 21 through 22, go to all the Egyptians, like the women, ask them to give you their articles of silver, okay, and gold, and for clothing, and you will literally plunder all of the Egyptians. So not only is God just saying, you're going to be free, you're going to get good land. Oh, by the way, I'm going to slap the Egyptians in the face, and they're going to have to give you all their gold. Because what are the two things that the Egyptians they held in high regards? The land that they owned, the people that they were enslaved to, and the money that they had. And God was literally going to take away two of the most valuable things that they had, their free labor and their gold, because they could actually use it to buy things because they lived in a city. And they could build idols and all this stuff. So for the very first time, they're going to get a big slap in the face, and it's going to hurt. And I'm honestly here for it because it's God showing off just how powerful he is. Because he has to, if we say God's a promise keeper, then he's going to have to make all three of these promises happen. And if you continue to read in Exodus, you will see that not only did the Israelites get slapped in the face and all of their gold gets given to the Egyptians, all their gold gets given to the Israelites, they get set free and they get good land, and only a few people made it there. I need 3 volunteers tonight. Real quick as we kind of get ready for small groups. Okay, all 3 of you guys who raise your hand, come on up. Luke, Eli, and Sam. You guys have no idea. What if I wanted you to give each other a spa? Which wouldn't be anything new. Okay, so you guys have to answer a question, and then I'm going to actually give you some gold tonight. Like, yes, you can keep it. I'm going to show you, sorry. Now, clearly, I couldn't afford real gold, but you guys can take home to your siblings, and you can convince them it's real, except for Bella, because she's here, she knows. Okay, we've gone through a lot of the story of Moses. Okay, so I'd love for you guys to each just share one thing about his story that you think is absolutely wild. Anything we've learned in the last 2 months. Eli wants to go first. Okay.
So, when there were those ladies at the well, and he helped them, I thought that was pretty wild, because, like, he didn't have to, and he just kind of did it out of the blue.
Yeah, was it inspiring too?
Yep.
Okay, I love it. Thank you very much. Here's your gold. Good job. Thank you. Okay, Luke wants to go next.
How he was bad and killed someone, but then he went with God, and now he's this massive guy saving all the people in Egypt, and yeah.
Yeah, was that kind of inspiring too?
Yes.
You learned not to kill anyone?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Awesome. Here's your gold. Thank you for sharing. Okay, Sam, what's your answer?
The burning bush.
Yeah, the burning bush. Did you learn not to play with fire from the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It is pretty cool. I know a lot of people said that's a cool story. Awesome job. Thank you. Enjoy your gold. Please convince your little sister it's real. I would love to hear that story. Okay, so as we conclude tonight, again, tonight's main point is God equals promise keeper. That's what he is. And if you want to be like, oh, I don't know if that's true. Did he really keep them? I guess I'd have to say you'd have to read the book of Exodus to know, and Leviticus. And what's super cool about all of God's story, or all of Moses' story, is that at the end of his story, and again, we're just at the beginning of it. We're not finishing it, but we're concluding the series. At the end of Moses' story, it never was about him. Because if you think about it, like Luke said, he was this bad guy, and his heart might not have been bad, but he killed somebody, and he hid it and covered it up instead of taking responsibility, and then he fled and ran away, and he was wanted, really and honestly. And yet, despite that, God uses him, and he gives him a family. He gives him an identity of who he is. He calls him to take all these people who are in slavery out of Egypt. And so really, it wasn't about anything about Moses. It was everything about the God who was calling him to do this and to redeem him and to still love him even despite of all the things he had made, the decisions. It was always about God's faithfulness, his promises, his timing. God made Moses wait quite a few years in the desert before he called him back to the place he had been born. It was about God's power too, because no way Moses could have parted that Red Sea or made all of the Egyptians give the Israelites their gold, or no way Moses could have promised these people good land and have seen it through. It's just impossible. I don't see how any of us could do it. I don't see how Moses could have done it. And yet it was about God. It's about his faithfulness, that he's a promise keeper, and he is all that we need. And I would say, to conclude this series, thank God it's not about us, because it would just be dependent on what we can do. And I'm sorry, after a long week of work, I can only do so much. And I'm sure you guys feel that after school and after maybe your parents are complicated or your siblings are complicated or all of these things. Thank God it's not about us, and it's all about who he is. So tonight I'm going to pray for you if you guys want to stand up. And then as you go into small groups, there's actually some pretty intentional questions for you guys. One question, and maybe you'll get to it, maybe you won't. Slavery and being in captivity is a huge thing in the Old Testament, and I'd love for you guys to discuss that and be there's a few questions that go with it, what does this tell us about God, and how does that make you feel, and just a few things that are really important, because Exodus is amazing, and at the same time, there's kind of some wild stories in there. If you just told your new saved friend to go read it, they might have a lot of questions about God. So it's a great time for you to just talk about those things. Boys, if you want to stand up, I'm going to pray for you guys. And then after I pray, let me explain your small groups, because we kind of have some leaders that are gone tonight, and so I don't want you to be confused on where you should go. If you guys want to bow your heads with me, I'm just going to pray for you real quick. God, thanks for tonight. Thanks for these last 2 months to talk about Moses. His story is so wild, and yet at the end of the day, it's all about you. And God, our stories might feel wild at times. They might feel broken or maybe confused, or maybe we're thriving. Either way, God, those stories are all about you too. And so thank God it's not about us. Thank you that you are so powerful. You keep your promises, and I just pray that tonight we would be reminded of that as we go into small groups. In your name I pray. Amen. Okay, so if you're a 7th or 9th grade girl, or guy, you're going to go over there by Foursquare.